Hey everyone, welcome to the Pole Strong podcast with me, your host, Becky Dunn. Today I speak with Andrew Gregory, who only recently, in the last 5 years, discovered pole, and it's added a whole new aspect to his life. In his own words, I love to show what people with disabilities can achieve with pole and to challenge people's expectations of what a pole dancer's body is. I hope you enjoyed this just as much as I did. Andrew, thank you for joining me.
Oh, it's my absolute pleasure. It's a bit of a highlight to the day, to be honest.
Yeah, that's
Stuck at home.
You've got Rona.
I've got the Rona.
When did you test? When did you get it?
So I tested 2 days ago. It was actually a bit of a random test. I had a client. My main job in the world is doing hair, but I had a client who was slightly older, and I like to do tests before those kind of people. I spend the whole day with them, so I like to test before I see them. And it came back positive, and it was like, oh my God.
No.
So I'm actually feeling, although I feel slightly odd, like my head's a little bit cloudy.
Mm-hmm.
Other than that, I'm absolutely fine. So
you're doing the right thing by staying in, though, because you don't have to.
Oh, absolutely. Oh no, I know. It's like legally I don't have to, but I wouldn't drink. Actually, annoyingly, I had to take some rubbish out last night. I had to. I live on the 8th floor of a building, so I kind of chose my time when I knew there wouldn't be many people around.
Stay back.
And it was like, oh my God, I saw more people in that journey down 8 floors than I see in a whole week.
I bet you were like.
Anyway, sorry, I've digressed a bit here.
No. Well, I'm glad that we've managed to hook up, because this is going to be really, really cool and really valuable. So, I actually did see, before we get into pole and stuff, your Insta handle it had hair in it. So I was like, oh, I wonder if that's what he does, like for a living. So you're a hairdresser, are you?
Yeah, I'm a hairdresser. I have a very successful business. I'm self-employed. My work takes me, I get to travel with it as well. I'm lucky that I've got very wealthy clients. So
that's your niche.
Wherever they are,
you've hit a really good niche.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, I haven't worked in a salon for about 20 years.
Wow.
And I am never short of work. So I'm very lucky in that respect. I mean, I work hard, but it's, yeah.
So how did that come to be then? How did you end up in that situation where you've got these really wealthy clients? And
when I first started working in London, I'm originally from Yorkshire, and I was offered a job at a salon in London, and that salon at the time was very kind of uber cool and very creative. And via working there, I met some incredible people, and that was it. That's just kind of how it happened.
Wow.
Actually, within 3 months of working in that salon, I was out working in New York. So it gave me incredible contacts. And yeah, I've just managed to maintain it ever since.
That is
wicked. I'm good at hair. I am good at hair, though. Although I never advertise. I don't. It's never on my social media because the last thing I want is more hairdressing work.
Wow, what a situation to be in, by the way.
Yeah.
Kudos to you. Bravo.
Yeah, thank you.
So, do you teach pole at all?
I do teach pole. I do many things. Okay, somehow I have ended up at this point in my life.
Talk to us. Tell us all about
it. Full-time hair business. I train a lot myself.
Mm-hmm.
I teach. I perform. I compete, and I judge.
Wow.
How I managed to fit it all in, I don't know, but I like to be busy. I like to have lots of different things going on.
Yeah, same. It's important. You either do or you don't, and it's really like, for me, I enjoy being on the go all the time. I don't know how. I don't know what I would do of an evening if I come home. Well, I actually don't. I have the weekend, but that's like one day at the weekend.
See. I don't have weekends. I still doing hair on a Saturday, and then I teach all day Sunday. So in fact, I don't really necessarily get a day off, but it's doing stuff that I love. So actually, it kind of feels like a day off. If that makes sense.
This is it, yeah. So where did it all start for you then? How long have you been doing pole for?
So pole, I kind of started pole by accident. It was before my amputation. I had my leg amputated 4 years ago, following a motorcycle accident many years prior to that.
So you started pole before that?
Yeah, so I still had my leg when I started pole, but it was incredibly damaged. I couldn't walk properly. lots of pain, blah, blah, blah. But I'd found a studio which happened to be just right across the road from where I lived that did this thing called anti-gravity yoga. And it worked really well with my damaged leg because it was like the weight is kind of taken off the floor in kind of aerial hammocks. And so I did that for like 2 years, but then at the studio they also taught pole. And I finally decided that maybe I should give it a go when Deb Roach, who's a very famous parapolar, started working there, and she has part of her arm missing. And when I saw what she could do, I thought, well, my damaged leg is not going to be an excuse,
Stop me.
really.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, that was it. And literally, I booked my first class, and on that first day, I did 5 hours. Left the studio with blisters on my hands, but it was, when you just find something that works really well for you.
Yeah.
So then I did it for about a year, and then the amputation happened, and then I carried on.
So how have you found pole since that point?
Interesting.
Yeah.
It's very few teachers in this world have dealt with an amputee student in a pole class. I mean, actually, even a disabled student in a pole class. So a lot of the things that we were doing were actually having to make up or having to relearn, having to work around things. So I found it challenging, and there's still things that I find challenging, but there's also loads of things that work really well for me that don't work well for other people.
Yeah.
So it's, I'm like everybody else, really. There's pros and cons. It's just
of course.
You can literally stop me in my tracks by asking me to an inside leg hang on my left leg. Stop. If that's in the middle of your combo, I'm stuck.
Yeah, we're taking it out. And interestingly, just as a little side note, so do you think that there's any advice that you could give to instructors for people that would find themselves in that situation? Because you're totally right. Like, until you are in that situation, from you teaching, but also from you being a student for the first time, any advice? What advice would you give to instructors?
I can offer some advice. So, and this is actually from personal experience as well. I've gone into a class before, and a teacher said to me, "Oh, I didn't realize you were coming. I didn't plan anything." It's like, well, surely you can be flexible with what you're teaching, and I think that is my big message to people. I mean, you don't know who's going to walk into your class. So if you have prepped a class and you are rigid to that, and you can't flex on it, that's a problem.
I totally agree.
I think you need to be able to, with every student, some things, not every move works for everybody. And if you can't say, well, maybe you should try this, maybe we could try this, give this to go, then, I think that's a bit of an issue, to be honest. So I think having anybody in your class, but especially somebody who's disabled, work with them, be flexible about what you're doing, and come up with alternatives. You should be able to throw alternatives at a student.
100%. 100%. I totally agree with that.
I mean, for me, it's also not just about my leg. There's also lots of other things going on with my body. I mean, I'm 50 years old, so I mean, I'm not surprised.
Wow, you look good.
Thank you. I have problems with my rotator cuff, so my rotation movement is not great. And I also have a problem with my hands, that I can't put my hands flat anymore. I've got this weird genetic condition. So it's not just my leg for me. There's lots of issues, but my teachers, the people that I train with, are incredible at working around stuff. And now that as I get more experienced as well, I can now do those workarounds. It's like I no longer think, well, if I can't do that, I'm just going to give up. Like, well, if I can't do that, what can I do instead?
I could be wrong in saying this, by the way, and I would never want to cause offense to anyone if this is the case, but I feel like it can be quite difficult, maybe overwhelming, if like you're new to teaching and you have I remember when I was brand new to teaching and I had my lesson plan and being like, oh my God, what do I do if there's like now, I have a loose plan of what I'm going to do. Like, I'm like, oh, I know these shapes that I'm going to teach, but sometimes I don't teach anything to plan. I've always been like that. I always react to who I've got in the class. I've never, my other instructor at my school is a teacher, so she is very like, this is what we're going to teach, this is what we're going to do. Where for me, I work so differently. So being, like you say, that being able to adapt. But when you're so new to teaching too, it can be like, oh no, I don't know what to do. But it's really good advice, because you should be able to adapt. You should always have those.
That's so true. That's so true. But also, if you're new to teaching, that's a kind of slightly more forgivable, but still
not excusable.
Yeah, exactly.
Because that's the whole point of being a teacher. It doesn't matter in any whatever you teach. There might be it could be outside of pole. By the way, I'm talking any sport, any type of teaching.
Exactly.
You're always going to have to make regressions or give alternatives or change your teaching style.
Absolutely.
Amazing. So how long have you been teaching for then? So when did you start to teach?
So I qualified to teach, when was it? So I think it was 2019. It was just after I got my first world champion title with IPSF. And I kind of thought, well, if I'm carrying that world parapole title, it would be nice to teach as well. And actually I did my teaching qualification and then didn't tell anybody about it. I kind of sat on it for about 6 months. I wasn't really feeling like anybody would want to come to my classes. Why would they? Why would you go to a teacher who's disabled? And then the studio that I train at, I kind of let slip that I'd done my training, and that was it. They jumped on it.
Yeah, I bet.
And so I started teaching. I think I started teaching about probably 8 months before COVID hit, actually. So, I built my classes up, and then of course COVID hit. And then as soon as the studios were open again, then I started teaching, actually probably a lot more after COVID.
So how many nights are you teaching at the moment, or how many days, nights?
This is my deal. So I train for myself during the week.
Mm-hmm.
So Monday to Friday, I don't teach at all unless somebody needs cover.
Mm-hmm.
Then Saturday, I will either teach or train depending on what's going on, and then Sunday I teach the whole day. So I do like 5 classes back to back.
Wow. But I suppose that's quite nice if you, like you say, you've got the whole week to train for yourself. I think it's different when you're teaching all week and then you come to add in that time for yourself. That's really difficult.
I think one of the reasons I'm so strict about that is I've seen people start to teach who then actually lose their higher level skills, because unless you're teaching high level classes, you kind of lose those really big tricks, or maybe I'm not explaining this very well. It's everybody teaches way more lower level classes than they do high level classes.
Yes, of course, because that
is just the way of the world. And also
that's where your interest levels come in, isn't it?
And also the beginner classes are always busier. It's like always. As you go up through the levels, it's like it filters off and it filters off.
Yeah.
And I don't think actually there's so many people these days that want to do the big scary moves. So I think it's very easy to lose that level of training if you're teaching a lot. I didn't want that to happen. I want my teaching to be an add-on to what I do. I don't want to be a pole teacher, if that makes sense.
Well, I suppose you've got your successful business, so
exactly. I am not making a living from it, definitely.
This is it. So, and also if that's your passion and you love doing that, and no doubt that you do with where it's taken you, then the balance that you have right now is really nice.
Yeah. I mean, I suppose it is very different for me that I am not earning a living from it. I still earn money.
It's nice that you've got that. Yeah, exactly.
But if you're relying on that being your income, then obviously you need to teach a lot of classes.
Yeah, absolutely. So with your do you find there's any barriers from teaching, like with you know where this question's going? So like you were saying about inside leg hang, for example, like is it, but you could do it on your other side.
Okay.
You could do it on your other side.
Exactly.
So with with training
I
on, it must be so annoying to have to actually, before we start, was that your good leg? Was that your good side? Your good leg side?
No,
Oh, that's good. That's
I
good.
know. And amazingly, all of my teachers then also were right side dominant. Thank God.
Amazing, because I'm left. So I teach
okay.
everything left-handed. And then I'm like, girls, you're going to have to just reverse this. You know what to do. But that's really good.
What you don't demonstrate on your other side?
No, I do. No. At a beginner level, at a beginner intermediate level, I do everything on my right.
Of course, no, I'm joking.
No. But like, it's a really good. If any instructors are listening, it's a really good time for you to train your other side, and build up that strength. And because you should be able to do stuff, as we know, instructors, we should be able to do stuff on both sides. But if you're teaching at that low level, like I teach beginner intermediate more than I do at advanced, so it's a really good opportunity for you to train your bad side and build up that less dominant side.
So taking this on a little bit, I don't teach beginners, and the reason for that is it's actually more of a guilt thing on my part. There's some things that I do in a different way to other people.
The beauty of having loads of different instructors.
Yeah, but I would not want to give those habits to somebody who was starting out on pole. I would rather somebody learn really great basic technique and then come to one of my classes and be like, oh, that's a different way of doing it. It's like, so I feel guilty about teaching beginners, and also there is some stuff I literally cannot teach. I just cannot. A crucifix, I cannot do a crucifix. It's like, it's so annoying that it's such a low level movement. It's like, oh. So I teach intermediate and up.
Yes, cool.
For those reasons. I mean, of course, if we have sickness at the studio and I'm covering, of course I can teach. I've always got like 2 or 3 lower level classes in the bag that work super well. But if I'm teaching the same people, taking them all the way through their beginner level, I feel really bad that I can't teach them everything.
I think that's really cool that you've been able to identify that, by the way, because learning the fundamentals and the basics are crucial.
I totally agree. And of course, I can teach everybody to do something.
Of course you can.
But I think at those early stages, you learn great technique and then break the technique, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
you learn the basics, then break the rules.
But it's like learning to drive. You have to drive at 10 and 2.
Exactly.
And then once you pass, then you can start to do your own little touches, like with getting into inside leg hang, for example, right? I like to teach getting into inside leg hang from like a flat line. I just do. I don't really enjoy teaching, from if you were actually going straight into an inside leg hang from an invert, for example, but that's my personal preference. But again, when you start to learn the basics, you learn it, and then you can say, well, this is what I like to do. So you can then take it on and run with it, can't you, of what your sort of your preferred style is.
It's funny, Joe. I have a couple of pet hates.
Go on.
When I'm teaching.
Go on.
And one of them is that students find it so difficult to go straight into an inside leg hang. So I make them do that. I make them do that a lot for conditioning, even though I get it. And another one is re-grips when you're hooking onto an outside leg hang or an inside leg hang.
Yes.
These are my 2 pet hates. And it's not that there's anything wrong with going flat line to inside leg hang. It's a great move, but it's like I like people to condition the things that they can't do.
They have to. I add them into my conditioning. A 10 second inside leg hang hold, 10-second outside leg hang hold. It has to be done. It has to be done, doesn't it? Because the reason why you don't like getting into inside leg hang, everybody, is because it fucking hurts. And we know it. We know it does. It's not nice, but it does get a little bit easier. So many girls say to me all the time, like, does it not cause you pain anymore? And obviously our pain tolerance reduces so significantly. And I'm like, I still smile and I'm like, still hurts, still pinches, but it pinches when you're showing again and again and again. But it's really important. And again, it goes back to that fundamentals, doesn't it? And conditioning, the basics.
Absolutely.
then you can get into those moves how you prefer to get into them.
That's so true. That's so true.
Yeah, so you've actually only really been you're actually quite new to teaching in terms of, you know, you're like getting a full run at it since pre-COVID.
So I guess I've been where are we now? I guess I've probably been teaching for like 2 years, but there's been a break in between. Big break. Yeah.
So do you
although I was teaching online, actually, I was saying that I was teaching online during, because where the studio where I teach at, obviously had to do something during COVID. So I kind of forgot, even though I wasn't teaching in the studio, actually I was teaching online. So so
you've actually still had a really good run at teaching. So how did you find teaching online, by the way? Do you still do any of it now, or are you solely face to face?
I do. I mainly teach privates online now. My restriction at home is that it's not that I have a low ceiling; it's that I'm really tall.
Yeah. Hear that.
So everything I do at home has to be done without a climb. So there's definite limitations to what I can teach here, even though I can teach a lot still. So I tend to teach only privates now rather than ongoing classes.
Yeah, that's totally fair. So do you or did you have a sporting background? Do you do any other sports? No,
absolutely not. So before I discovered the anti-gravity yoga thing, I mean, I hadn't exercised since the motorbike accident. So I think it'd been like 17 years. I'd done no exercise whatsoever.
Wow.
Could not touch my toes. I mean, there's no flexibility, no strength, no fitness, literally nothing.
So I know we spoke about this a little bit, and we spoke about this a little bit before we started recording. So you had an accident quite a long time ago, about 16 years ago, did you say?
No, it's actually longer than that. So the accident, I've got to work this out in my head now. So my amputation was 4.5 years ago.
Yeah.
My motorbike accident was 17 years before that.
Wow.
So that's 21.5 years ago.
Wow.
I lived with the injuries. I mean, it was many operations. I had like 14 operations over the years trying to sort my leg out. And it was none of it was very successful. So that's why I decided finally to go ahead with the amputation.
Yeah.
Which has been amazing.
I was just about to say, and how do you feel about that? Because that must have been a really difficult decision.
You know, actually
you did say you were in a lot of pain. So it must have got to a point. It must get to a point. It's almost like, this is on a very different scale, by the way, but I'm just saying it like this. Like, I remember having a really bad toothache once for two weeks, and I got to the point where I was like, just take it out. I don't care. I want the pain gone. Just take it out. And that's what happened. But it's the point where, like, if you're in so much pain and discomfort, and you have been for all of these years, and it can just be taken away. Like, look at you now. Like, there's no limitations. You're doing amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I hated my leg. The damage, it had made my leg misshapen. I didn't have an ankle. My foot was attached at this weird angle. I had to walk with a walking stick, and this was all things I hated. So I had 17 years to get used to the idea of amputation, basically.
Yeah.
And I had the operation. I remember waking up, and I had the biggest smile on my face. It was just this massive sense of relief. And weirdly, I mean, I don't recommend this, and my surgeons would go mental with me. But I was back in the studio training 11 days after the amputation. I still had my stitches in, but it was the right thing for me, you know.
And this is it.
I needed to get moving again.
It's a bit like, you know, when people say how long it takes after when you give birth and you start exercising and stuff like that. Like, women fluctuate with different, like, again, it's all down to you. Like, you knew.
Yeah,
it
takes as long as it takes. It takes as long as it takes you. That's how long
100%. And you were ready, and you also are very body aware. Like, you knew there was, like you say, you had your stitches and stuff. So your surgeons probably would go absolutely mad.
Yeah, absolutely. But hey, it's all worked out well.
Yeah,
but, you know, since becoming an amputee, my life has changed as well. Not just in ways that I couldn't possibly have thought about. So I also do some modeling work with. I think because these days, there's a lot about inclusion and a lot about bringing different aspects into different industries. So the fashion industry has definitely worked on bringing people who look different into their fold. And then 4 weeks ago, I was performing at the outside Buckingham Palace for the Jubilee, which, it's like I was hanging off a balloon outside Buckingham Palace as an amputee. Was just incredible. To be included in those level of things is fantastic, and that wouldn't have happened if I hadn't been an amputee.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, definitely.
So all these doors have opened. I say doors have opened. Obviously, doors don't just open for no reason. I work.
You work hard.
I work hard. Yeah. But opportunities have presented themselves that wouldn't have presented themselves had I not been an amputee.
Yeah, which is wicked. And you bring and the exposure that you can, like you said, you've had 16 years or however long to prepare yourself for this moment, and you were happy with the decision, and it's been a huge, like say, a weight lifted off and a huge benefit to you. But I know that we said not to use that word inspire, but you can inspire other people, because there's probably people that are sat there that want to do different things. And I'm not just talking just pole, but maybe want to go try anything, and they're too scared because
it's so true. It's so true. And I do, via my social media, I am in contact with a lot of people all around the world who I chat to about kind of motivational kind of stuff. About different things, not just about pole. And I get the inspirational thing. I absolutely get it. It comes when people talk about or send messages about what an inspiration I am. I get it. It's coming from a really good place. But you know what? Sometimes it's actually just really nice when somebody says, "Wow, you're really good at what you do." End of story. So
just leave it there.
Yeah, just leave it there. But I get the inspirational thing. I get it. It comes from a place of positivity. Even though sometimes I just want to be seen as being good at what I do.
But I think that's where the inspiration comes from, though, because I'm not saying that you wouldn't be if not, by the way, so please don't take this in any other way.
No.
Because you are so good. You are at a really high standard of what you do. That is where the inspiration comes from too.
Yeah, I get that.
Like you look and you think, holy shit, he's doing all of this sick stuff. Like you're not just doing basic sort of like basic spins, like you're doing really cool shit on the pole, and that I think is where it's like, wow, like that you there's no limitations here. Like don't let anything hold you back. But you're on the other end of it. So I get that, where you must hear it a lot, and you're like, just tell me I'm good.
yeah.
So how do you look after, because you work out a lot by the sounds of it, do you do anything else other than pole, or do you do anything for strength and conditioning, or you just pole?
No, I say I just pole. So I do some other strength stuff when I'm at the studio, usually using my aerial straps, or I'll use a hoop, or press up handles, other things based around the same sort of industry. That calisthenic style movement. Exactly. But I do way more on the pole than I do anything else.
Of course, but you still use other bits of apparatus or equipment to enhance, because you do need it for a lot of people. They don't have access to the studio, like unless you're really lucky and you can train as and when, or like if you're an instructor, you have a little bit more freedom to go in and train and stuff like that. If you don't have that, then you can't be on the pole as much, for example. It's a really expensive sport.
You know what, that's so true. It is a really expensive sport. But you don't need equipment to train. I mean,
100% you don't. No.
There's so much I can do here at home. I mean, I've got a pole here, but weirdly, I don't do any conditioning on my pole here. But there's plenty that you can do at home.
100%, yeah.
So it's kind of exactly. Yeah, it's kind of fun working stuff out as well,
Yeah, no, definitely. I totally agree. So we've covered your training structure. We know what that looks like. So it's very free for you, which is great. Mobility and flexibility.
Yeah, the bane of my life. I mean, part of the problem. So I started on this whole kind of like pole thing when I was 45. And like I said earlier, I couldn't touch my toes.
Yeah.
And I've never been flexible, although I've never tried. Actually, I've never needed to know whether I'm flexible or not. I don't think I ever was flexible. I don't know. So it's been a bit of a battle. Trying to increase the flexibility in my legs as an amputee is challenging.
Okay.
I can't really stretch properly in my prosthetic, and then out of my prosthetic, the end of my stump. Not everybody likes that word. I love it. The end of my stump is kind of, you get some weird sensations through that thing.
Okay.
So it's not so easy just to do stretches in the same way that everybody else does. So it just means that my stretch journey is a longer, slower journey.
Yeah.
But that's fine. You know, I've got splits on one side. I'm not sure my box splits will ever work, but I train it, but that's much harder for me to stretch. And my back flexibility is kind of rubbish. My shoulder flexibility is rubbish, but you know what? I train it all because I want to maintain what I do have rather than lose it, you know?
Yeah, and it can, if you neglect it, it's only going to get worse because everything tightens too. Like, it doesn't matter what you're doing. Like, if you don't, even some days when I finish, I'm like, oh God, I feel really tight here, and it's really important to try and work that out a little bit, or just, you know, do those. The problem is that training is flexibility is so boring. If you're training by yourself, it is so boring.
God.
Isn't it though?
Oh my God, it's so boring.
It's dire. So boring. It's I'm always like, oh, I've got an hour here. Let's do some flexibility. I'm like, I'm 3 minutes in. I'm like, like 3 minutes in. I'm like, I can't split yet.
Yeah.
You know,
I book flexibility classes.
Yeah.
Because I'll admit it, I never do flexibility training on my own.
No, I didn't either. So I actually changed my timetable and added in a flexibility class. And it got to the point where I was like, I don't care if anybody doesn't show up, or like if I only have one student in that class, I don't care, because it means that I get to stretch too. So
weirdly, I know that after saying all that about my flexibility, I weirdly teach a flexibility class, but it's a weird flexibility class. So it's I do stretches using the aerial hammocks, which actually I kind of did for my benefit, because it's the one time I can really stretch my amputated leg because it's supported in the fabric.
So
I have all these stretches that I do that work really well for me, and people seem to like it as well. It's a busy class.
Well, this is it. Like, so it's still a form of stretching.
It's intense. I mean, it is intense. I can go much more intense because I haven't got the floor pressing on my stump. So that kind of works well. It's just, again, it's finding ways that work for me as somebody who's disabled, you know.
Absolutely. And also like sharing that too, like you say, people are going to benefit either way. It's still a form of stretching. It's still you're not taking that away. It's just, but I'm like that too. Sometimes I structure my warm-up. Sometimes I've gone through periods of time where like I've had glute injuries, so a lot of my warm-ups will include banded mobility work. And everyone benefits from it, but it benefits from me too. Like, or if my shoulders are a bit tight, I add in a little bit more shoulder exercises with resistant bands, or you know, whatever that might be. So you do, I think, you know, that's the benefit of being an instructor too, is that you can tailor it, and no one would even know. Like, they don't know. They just think they're getting a bloody good session in.
Exactly.
And so in terms of looking after your body with nutrition supplements, are you quite big on that? Is that, or just
I'm
free
not
spirit?
big on no. I mean, I'm very strict about what I put into my body. I am not a big one for supplements as such. I think I like to eat well rather than try and get it from supplements, although I am vegetarian, so I do take iron, and I take B12 as well. But I don't eat processed food. Everything I have on my plate is whole grain, pulses, vegetables, no ultra processed food at all. mean, I eat tofu. That's one of those weird ones.
In between.
It's processed. Is it ultra processed? I don't know. I try and eat tofu in as basic a form as possible. But yeah, so I'm very careful about what goes into my body, but I don't do the protein shakes. I don't do the weird supplements. It's just, good basic food, good basic portion sizes, and at regular intervals throughout the day.
So keeping it balanced.
Exactly.
Do you focus on your protein intake at all, or like your macronutrient breakdown, or you again balance?
No, I have an awareness. I understand about proteins. I understand about carbohydrates, starchy carbs, all those kind of things. I do, and I'm a natural editor. So I'm one of those people that edits my food intake kind of automatically. It doesn't. I mean, not everybody has that ability. It just works well for me.
Yeah, but I think when you've been doing it for so long too, and you know what works for your body, you can. You can do that.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah. I'm very careful to, as soon as I finish training, I'll have a handful of nuts, all those kind of like things that, like there's good times to have protein. There's pointless having a plate full of protein. It's kind of, everything needs to be balanced. And I think I just eat in a balanced way.
Yeah. And it does, when you eat better, you do feel better. You are what you eat. And I do stand by that.
Absolutely. I'm also a big one for gut health as well. We kind of, it's a lot of that science is now showing that our gut bacteria is responsible for so much in our lives.
Yeah.
Not just about our digestive system, but about mental health, sleep, recovery, all those things. So I'm really up on how I treat my gut bacteria as well.
Yeah, it's so important, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. I even have, instead of sugar, I have this kind of soluble fiber which has a slight sweetness to it, and I'll have that in my tea instead of sugar, to increase the soluble fiber to help my gut bacteria. Yeah,
it is really, really important, and it's also been proven. Again, I think when you talk about diets and lifestyles and what people eat and stuff like that, you have to really keep an open mind. And do your research on it too, and if it works for you, some people it's going to work for, some people it doesn't, but what you put in your body there has been a numerous amount of studies of what it relates to particular skin conditions, or anything that like causes like eczema. I mean, I'm going way off here, and in a really detailed sort of what they called when you do I've lost the word. Not like what scientists do.
That train of thought just went.
It's what scientists do. When they do what do they do? I've actually completely lost the word. But when they what is the word when they like dig deep on something? If you do like an examination sort of thing. Study.
Okay.
There's been loads of studies showing that like what you put in your body, like how it affects your hormones and all of this sort of stuff. Gut health.
Absolutely.
But study was the word I was looking for.
Over the years as well, I've suffered greatly with depression, and so I'm kind of, anything I can do to help that, I do. And again, exercise and microbiome in our gut has been proven to assist with mental health, and actually for the last 7 years I've not taken antidepressants, which I was on for many years. So something is working, and I just think respect what goes into your body, and use your body the way that it should be used. So we need to eat, we need to move. They're the two things that our body needs, food and exercise. Everything else is just a bonus.
Yeah, and the importance of sleep too, by the way, with that. With how important is sleep is so underestimated, but it's really I'm just going to add a small point on here. I've spoken about it before on other podcasts, but the importance of eating. A lot of women and men in the industry suffer with body dysmorphia. It's very common, a lot from a lot of people. So I've had loads of clients, including myself when I first started Pole, that I didn't eat anywhere near as much food as I should be because I had that body dysmorphia. I think pole really helps with that too, when you start realizing that you need to feel your body in order for it to do these.
Absolutely.
You know, when you have students that come to you that want to do these big powerful moves, or like they have that eagerness to want to be able to progress, you need to feel your body right to be able to do that.
Absolutely.
And then your mindset starts to shift.
I definitely went through a period where I wasn't eating enough, and it was actually, I remember a video that I did of myself on the pole one day, and it was like, oh, is that my ribs?
Yeah.
Like, okay, I need to, because unfortunately I'm one of those people that can exercise on an empty stomach. I don't need to eat to exercise, and I still have the same energy, which is not good. It is not good. So when I realized actually I need to up my calorie intake, and realistically I could probably eat even more than I'm eating now and still maintain my weight.
But like it's having that awareness, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, that's great. So in terms of like recovery and massage, stuff like that, do you look after your body like that at all? Are you quite big on it? Are you, you're nodding, you're smiling.
Yeah, so up until about 6 months ago, I did not have a day off training. And for me, it works absolutely fine. But now I've been forced to take a day off, mainly because I have to do a late night with my work. So it's like I have to take a day off training, unfortunately.
But it is important. It is so important.
Well, I do feel the benefit. I do feel the benefits of it. So I would definitely say to people, take a day off training. And yeah, I do have. I have a sports masseur that I go to. We see each other. If I'm uninjured or if I have no issues, I'll see him once a month. But if I've got an issue, I go and see him as regularly as I can. I think that's super important. It's finding somebody who's good at what they do. And he's actually massaged me through injury, and I've managed to carry on training at the same time. I mean, that's kind of an expensive way to do it, because obviously if you're training through injury, you need a lot of treatment. It's definitely cheaper to take time off training. But again, that just works. It's something that works for me. I feel that if I stop training, actually the rest of my body seizes up as well. So I like to work through it and work with my sports therapist.
You are absolutely right about finding somebody that's good for you. I've seen multiple sports therapists, and just like if you're seeing one and you're like, I didn't really see the benefits there, go and find another one. Go and explore different therapists until you find one that works for you.
And I'm really lucky that the guy I go to used to do pole, so he kind of understands. When you say to him,
I was just about to add that.
I can't do a twisty grip. Most people are like, what the hell are you talking about? Whereas he absolutely gets what I'm talking about without having to go into great detail.
My physio has become a friend actually, and I know he watches all my stuff on Insta, and he watches it to understand the movement. So when I go in and say I was doing this, exactly that twisted grip, or like I'm like, with this video where I'm doing this, and he really does understand what I'm doing and what I'm putting my body under. And then as a result, like all of my students and my clients go and see him. So he's treated multiple pole related injuries, so he's able to really pinpoint and identify, and it's great, because then you become more knowledgeable too.
Absolutely.
And knowing how to, I would never give out advice without my advice actually would always still be to go and see someone, but just being able to talk.
It's really weird. It's really weird as a teacher. Somebody comes up to you and they're like, oh, so I've got this injury, have you got any exercises that you can help with it? And I'm like, go and see someone. I am not going to give any advice other than maybe use a roller while you're waiting to see somebody. But 100%. I do not pretend to be somebody who can give you advice about injury.
No, I'm also not
try and help you prevent injury, but
definitely. And that's where I come in, and that's again on that. So I say, like, if it's for me, like if I've been injured in my shoulder before, which I have, or my glute, I'm like, well, this is what I've done. still go and see someone. These are the exercises that I've done to build up strength or to help my shoulder build up some mobility or whatever it might be. But that's not to say that you need to do them. This is just what I've done, and I tend to add them into my warm-ups so girls can learn why, and
I mean, prehab is always better than rehab.
Oh my god, right? This is the thing. Don't wait to that point where you're injured, because it is not fun. Or like you have that niggle and you're like, oh, I might go see someone, but I think I'll be able to train through it. It's like, nuh-uh.
No, go and see somebody.
Exactly. Take the time off. So this has been great, by the way. This has been such a fun chat. But just to finish up, what would be your advice? Actually, I want to ask two things. Let me park that quickly. Do you feel like you've brought a lot of awareness? I know you said you speak to a lot of people around the world that are in a similar situation, or may have something, maybe an amputee or whatever it might be. Do you personally feel like you've brought a lot of exposure to the pole industry and having a disability or whatever it might be? Like,
I absolutely do. So when I first started competing with IPSF, which is the International Pole Sport Federation, have a worldwide championship, and they have a parapole competition, which is really where I started competing, and that is amazing. That's great, and I compete every year with them. It's amazing. But I think the day that I decided to compete against regular poles was the day that I really helped bring attention to disability and pole. I kind of thought, why wouldn't I compete against regular polos? And when I entered my first, I call it regular. What I mean is non-para. So it's just just in a regular pole competition. So when I entered pole theatre and I won, and
that's amazing. Congrats, by the way.
To be able, thank you very much. To be able to hold your own against non-disabled poles is amazing, but incredible. Also that brings you much more attention. It really brings the attention of people to disability and pole, and actually it shouldn't be a separate thing. It's great that parapolers have their own competition as well, but there is nothing to stop us competing against you lot.
100%. And I wanted to, again, because when you see it from the outside, you're like, wow, he must be bringing so much awareness to this and you're doing great things for the industry. But I wanted to know if you personally felt like that, which you do.
Yeah, I do, and I feel very proud of that.
You should.
Well.
You should.
I feel very proud of it. There is a slight responsibility with it as well. But the more that I can push that, the better.
Yeah, absolutely. So what would your advice be? I'm going to go 2 questions on this. Firstly, what would your advice be to anyone, a beginner? And what would be your advice be? Because when this goes out, I'm hoping that people will listen to it, that are in a similar situation, or, might have a disability themselves. And, what would your advice be to anyone that has a disability too, that maybe even just feel like,
well, weirdly, I think,
go on, what would be your advice?
Actually, weirdly, you're asking me the same question. You've asked me 2 different questions, but actually the answer is the same for both.
Yeah,
because people with disabilities are people. It's kind of like
100%.
So I think I can cover it all with one answer.
Yes.
I think, first of all, the thing to do when you're starting pole is book a class.
The given.
Simple. You cannot start pole unless you book a class.
Yeah.
Then do a couple of classes, and if you're not enjoying it, it may be that is not the right teacher for you.
Agree.
So I think it's really important to try different teachers. This is the same whether you're disabled or able-bodied, because it's all about finding the right teacher that works for you.
Yeah.
Also, different teachers have different styles. My work is much more strength-based. I don't really do much choreo. Some pole teachers do a lot of choreo, less strength-based. It's kind of like, so it's finding your
preferred style.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Finding your preferred teacher.
Yeah.
Try a different studio. Every studio has a different vibe. every time I go to a different studio, I am amazed at how different the vibe is. Some are really family oriented, some feels like family. Sometimes you go into a studio and actually there is no connection between the students at all. But it kind of depends what works for you. And there's good and bad on both sides. So yeah, book a class, try different teachers, and don't be frightened to ask questions. If something is not working for you, say to that teacher, this isn't working for me. Can you help me work it out?
Yeah.
If that teacher says no, if they can't help you, go somewhere else.
Leave.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you're so right about that, by the way. Every studio has a different vibe. And it's really
and there is nothing wrong with that. It's just you find the one that you feel comfortable in.
Super taboo down here to mix and match studios down in the south. Like down right where I am, yeah. Like it's I know.
See, I actually think that's ridiculous. Sorry, I think that's slightly crazy. I've heard of this in different areas.
Yeah.
But actually, all pole studios should support each other. Thing is,
amen.
Especially in a time like at the moment where COVID is a real problem, and you get a teacher who has to cancel because of COVID, you need the support of other studios with other teachers who are generally self-employed. So studios that have problems with their teachers teaching at different studios, that is not a problem you're allowed to have. But by studios supporting each other, it helps in those situations that maybe you can contact a teacher from a different studio to cover a class for you.
It baffles me. It baffles me so much.
It's crazy. Yeah, and I'm lucky. I have a really great relationship with several studios across London and also in New York as well. And it's brilliant. It should be. We support each other. Try supporting each other. It helps.
I totally agree with that. I always say, like, I don't care where you go. If you're here, that's great. If it were, it's not about you as a studio sometimes either. It's about you as as the paying client, where works for them. And I'm not going to shrug you off if you go to another studio. Like, it's so bad.
Yeah.
But anyways,
I totally, I think because I work as a hairdresser, I know that it's about what is best for the clients.
Always.
The client. It's always about the client. They're the
king.
ones who are paying, and they're paying our bills.
Mm-hmm.
So don't get arsy with people if they're chopping and changing. They're still, at the end of the day, they're paying your bills.
100%. Totally agree. Preach, honey, preach. Well, it's been absolutely.
Also, can we just I'll just add one more thing to that. Studio owners, start making a network. It's like studio owners support each other.
Oh my God.
I know people that will not speak to other people if they're a studio owner. There's a studio down the road from me who I cannot go to because I'm a pole teacher. They won't let me into a class because I'm a pole teacher.
Yeah, down here, south, same.
What the hell? What, you think I'm going to steal ideas from you?
But if you do, you're not going to teach the same as me. People come to me because they want to come to me.
Listen, I can go on Instagram and see these. Do you know what I mean? It's like, yeah.
You're totally right.
Anyway.
No, I totally agree because you should. And this is why I love doing these podcasts, to connect with people in the industry as well. It's so nice to be able to, like I did. I was lucky enough to do the Expo campaign a couple of months ago, and I've already done a podcast with a couple of the people.
Yeah.
So I've already had that connection, and it's great to be able to, because our paths might cross one day, and that would be wicked.
Absolutely.
It's so cool to train with different people, and
I've got to say, so I did one of those Expo campaigns a couple of years ago.
Yes, I think
it was such a great experience. It was such a great experience. Yeah. Oh, there's my door going.
Okay, you go grab it. Oh
yeah, literally all the parcels.
Is that COVID tests?
Just arrived. There's COVID tests. There's also some other stuff. Which the problem with having COVID, being sat at home, is like, oh, maybe I'll go shopping.
I know, I'm exactly the same. I'm the worst. Oh. I can't remember what I was saying before. Oh, the Expo campaign. So good, isn't it? So good.
Brilliant.
That was a really good thing to be a part of. I was thinking, by the way, I want to go back to my question when I asked you about your advice. I was thinking more for people that if they had a disability that hadn't started pole, but my pole podcast is for everyone doing pole, so I suppose your answer to the question is relatable to both. But I was thinking more if there was anyone that was listening that maybe thinking about doing pole, but they probably wouldn't know about this podcast, so this is totally irrelevant.
Well, you never know. I know if you have a disability, it's always harder to try things that are out of your comfort zone. I get it. There's also quite often accessibility issues to studios. Studios are rarely on the ground floor. They're rarely walking in. So it's about research. Maybe try and contact a poler who has a disability, just like me.
AKA
it's like
the one and only.
These are the points where I really like to help people.
Yes.
Maybe getting over those initial kind of
barriers. Sorry if that came across, if it was confusing. That was sort of what, that was where I was going with that angle of that question of more anyone listening that would think that, like, I'm too scared to go to a class because of XYZ. I don't feel like I'm going to be comfortable. So, you can really be there to be like, hey, it's fine.
Absolutely.
Go and give it a go.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah. The most important message is go and give it a go.
Always. And I put this up on my page actually the other day. What's the worst that can happen? You're just going to say, I don't like it. Exactly. You would go to a new restaurant. You'd maybe go watch a film that was come out in the cinema, and you walk out and you're like, oh, that was shit.
Yeah, exactly.
Or, I love that. It's exactly the same with sport. Just come give it a go, and if you don't like it, then you have to go back.
Yeah, absolutely. That's so true.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure speaking to you. Just
such a pleasure.
Great conversation, and I'm not going to say it, but you.
Go on, say it.
No, I'm not going to say it. But you're doing wonders for the industry. And I'm loving watching your stuff. It's so cool, and hopefully one day our paths will cross, because I'd love to train, because you are very much my style too. You definitely have a certain style. I'm very strength based, very dynamic. Yeah.
So I hate the floor. I literally hate the floor. I can spend 4 minutes doing a routine up the pole.
Yeah. Well, I think, like, again, it's finding those instructors that with your preferred style, like that is, I have a lot of clients booking privates for that style, for the flips and tricks and stuff like that, and that's why it's so important to have various different people. But anyways,
well, I mean, I'm really lucky that Hannah Rose is one of my teachers. She's been one of my teachers since almost the beginning. And that is her style. So it's kind of, I've been very lucky that I've had her from day one.
It's a powerhouse.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. I hope you get over Rona soon.
Thank you.
And it's just been a great chat. And hopefully one day our paths will cross.
Yeah, I'm sure they will.